Welcome back, everybody, to His Heartbeat and another great week with Michelle Bader Ebersole. No, I think I said that wrong. Can I say it right?
No, you said it right. You
Oh,
did it. Yes.
yay! That's awesome. Well, welcome, Michelle. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to be here. I live in Vancouver, Washington, not to be confused with Vancouver, Canada. It's right,
Okay,
Portland, Oregon, across the river.
okay.
And I live here I have three kids, but some of them have moved out. They're 21, 19, 17. The 17-year-old is the only one at home right now. I am remarried to my second husband, Joel. We've been married a little over 2 years and love paddleboarding and hiking and anything outdoors. So that's a little bit
Very
about
good.
me.
Did
Yeah.
he? Had he been married before? Did he bring kids
Yes.
into it?
Yes, but none of them live with us. So it's
Okay.
just now we all have our kids are all between 17 and 21 and the other ones are not here and so it's just my 17-year-old left and then my daughter is at college about an hour away but she comes home almost every weekend so we see her a lot too.
Yeah, I thought when my kids went to college, oh no, I'm empty nesting, but they were like
They
forever
come
showing up or we're
right?
going to them, and I'm like, no, maybe I'm not yet. You are.
Yes.
I like it.
Yes.
It's kind of
Me too.
slowly letting go,
Yes.
right? It kind
Yes, I
of
really
helps.
like it.
And
Mm-hmm.
then my son, after college, moved in with us, and
Yes,
he
nice.
actually just moved out, and I feel like, wow, I really am empty nesting now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of different, but
Yep.
well, good. Well, I know that your ministry is, and you have a book about being a widow. The book's called Widow Goals: Steps to Finding Peace When You Lose Your Spouse, along with the workbook. And so obviously that's a lot of your story, right? And you have
Mm-hmm.
a podcast related, Widowed
Mm-hmm.
to the number two soon, right?
Yes, yes, that's
So
correct.
the big part. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about your story.
Yes. So my first husband, Luke, and I met in high school, and we never dated in high school, but we had mutual friends. I went away to college, came back, and ran into him, and we ended up dating and got married a year later. All of this was
Wow.
completely God's timing when I look back at it. So we got married in August of 2003. And a few months later, we found out we were pregnant. So we're not planning that, super excited. And then after that, well, actually, before we got married, he had found a lump in his ankle. And he went to the doctor and they were like, oh, it's tendonitis. Don't worry about it. You're young. He was 25 at that time. And then finally, he had to go back and they did a biopsy and it was cancer, mesenchymal chondrosarcoma, so a bone cancer. He was 26 when he was officially diagnosed, and I was 25 and pregnant and just actually 24 when they diagnosed him, and I couldn't believe it. Like
Yeah.
I had no idea he had cancer. He'd been completely healthy his whole life, all-star athlete. It was just a shock. And he went on to have chemo to try to shrink the tumor. It did not work. And so, after a lot of prayer and talking to people, we decided to have an amputation on his right leg to
Wow.
remove the cancer. So, 2 inches below his knee, his leg was amputated, and it completely changed him. I mean, he went from being like this big, like I said, all star athlete to learning to walk again. And it was a very difficult journey, but we considered that day his cancer free day because there was no cancer anywhere else. It was actually a miracle. And so life went on for 13 more years. We had
Wow.
two more kids. We actually had, when the third one was born, we had a 3.5-year-old, an 18-month-old, and a newborn. So kind of crazy
Wow.
life for a
Yeah,
while.
yeah.
And, he had a lot of other health issues. Like he wasn't even able to go back to work. He tried a little bit, but then he was on disability most of his life. So 13 years later, he had a scan done and they found tumors in his lungs. And so
Wow.
it was the same cancer, so bone cancer, but in his lungs, but this time it was terminal. And we didn't believe that at first. Let's fight this with chemo again, even though we didn't want to do it, but nothing worked.
Mm.
And long story short, he actually passed away May 23rd, 2020, after about a 3.5 year second battle with
Okay.
cancer. My kids were 12, 14, and 15. And it was, I mean, I knew it was coming, but it's still, there's you can't explain that moment when you watch the soul of someone you love leave their body and what that's like. But God gave me this supernatural peace as he was dying. So he didn't actually die of cancer. He died of a blood clot. So it was fast. We had no idea it was coming, but we look at it as a blessing. It was about, they told us he had about 4 to 6 weeks left. And he really didn't want to be where he couldn't walk and talk and do all the things. He was completely active until the day he died. But his calf was hurting eventually. They believed that a clot went into his lungs. And so I was able to, wake up the kids, have them say goodbye. And God just gave me this supernatural peace. I was not crying. I was like, talk to your dad. And I was talking to Luke and I was saying, you're going to hear, well done, my good and faithful servant. Today, you're going to hear that. You're going to meet my grandparents. And I was just like, really able to have this peace. And it wasn't until he took his last breath and the kids left the room. And it was like my mom and myself and his body. And that's when I really lost it. And the kids talk about it now. They could hear me from the other room and how awful that was because it was just unlike anything I'd ever experienced. So I was 41 years old, a new widow with 3 teenagers, and just like, I don't even know how to survive. I don't want to survive. I mean, I have my kids, but besides that, I
And
don't,
you
it's
were
like
working, right? I assume.
I was off for a while. So I was a teacher
Okay.
before Luke died. So at that time, no, I wasn't. And so right before his death, I was just doing some tutoring here and there because I knew I was taking care of him. So I didn't have to work at that moment, which I'm so thankful for. But it was just this place of being so lost. And I explained it to people. It's like everything you've ever looked forward to, like everything's gone. You feel like you have no reason to get out of bed because your person just died. And you're not only, when you have kids, you're not only walking through it yourself, you're carrying your grief for your loss of your husband and then your kids for their loss of their father. So you're carrying their grief as well. And so it's something very, very difficult. And I tried to find groups. I called all the churches in the area. Nobody had anything. And that's actually what led me to why I do my ministry today. All I wanted to know was that it was going to get better. It wasn't going to always feel like this. And I knew a few widow friends and I reached out to them, most of them older, a lot older than me. But they all told me that it would get better. And that's part of my mission today is to reach out to those new, I call them baby widows who are brand new and let them know it's not always going to hurt this bad. And so it's kind of how I began my ministry because part of our healing is also giving back. So when I started giving back, it helped me. So I would say a couple months into my journey, I was starting to feel joy again. I was starting to be like, okay, I can live again. I can do this. And then that's when I was like, we need groups for widows. We need things for widows. And so the first thing I actually did, as funny as it sounds, is I started a TikTok account and just started talking to widows like about things that I had gone through. And I would give them goals, widow goals. And the first one was get out of bed. And I would just give them little things. And I got such a high response. I had no clue
Wow. Wow.
that I was like, okay, people need help. And then the second thing that I did is I was in a Facebook group, and that's really a lifeline for widows and widowers is finding their people on Facebook. And I met a friend, and he and I became really good friends. And we decided to start a podcast together because we were in this young and widowed with children, and we were like, these people need Jesus. Like they were turned into all the wrong things and just so hopeless. So we're like, let's start a widowed podcast, a faith-based Christian widow podcast. And so in 2021, not even a year in my journey, and he was less than a year also, we decided to start this podcast and just tell our stories and then just talk through our lives. He had young kids, I had teenagers. He was a widower, I was a widow. And so we were able to reach a pretty large audience. And so that's how my podcast began. That's now been going 4 years. And now it's mostly interviews. I interview widows from all over the world and their experiences and their stories and how God helped them through it. I also started a nonprofit for widows because there were no groups. So I was like, well, we're going to start one. So I started, actually, the first thing we did was my daughter and I went around to widows' houses. We got the addresses of like 7 or 8 in our area, and we gave them gifts on Mother's Day because Mother's Day is actually a really hard day as a widow. Um, and then we just kind of started getting together, and we're like 3 years into it, maybe 3 or 4. And we get together the third Monday of every month. For instance, this coming week, all of the people, I think I have 11 people coming over for Friendsgiving, where we get together and have a Thanksgiving meal. And we reach out when we hear of a new widow in the community, we all sign a card and send it to her and give her the
Oh,
information.
that's cool.
And then I was like, we need this other places. And so I had people from all over the country and two in Canada volunteer to lead groups. And I have over 30 groups all over. And so all I do is teach them what I learned, like how to do this. And then my newest passion is really about getting help into churches because the Bible mentions widows over 103 times. Well,
Wow.
it's exactly 103 in the NIV version. And yet, so few churches have any ministries or support for widows. And so I created a program that I'm really working hard to get into churches. I see it like a grief share for widows. And a lot of my widow friends have been to grief share, and I think it's an excellent program, but it's not specifically for widows and widowers. And so I wrote my book, Widow Goals, the one you were talking about, on the 5 year anniversary of Luke's death. I'm doing something to honor him. And so I wrote the book, and they're just like the goals that I gave to people in the beginning. But there's 30 of them, and they can open the book and be like, I want to talk about this one. And everyone has scripture in it. Have an eternal purpose, re-enter social spaces, how to deal with the holidays, just like all kinds of things that I've been through. And I created this book, and then I created a workbook that just digs deeper. And I started hearing of groups doing this. They were going through my book and my workbook. So I created a leader's guide just about a week ago. And so now I'm promoting this to churches as a whole system, as here it is, and helping my widows get it to their churches and like trying to find a way to support widows. So, I mean, that's my parts of my story. I feel like if God allowed me to go through this, I'm going to use it to help people. I didn't go through this just to do nothing with it. And so I kind of switched my whole career. I was an elementary teacher, and now I work with widows. And it's also because, which is a whole other long story we don't have time for, but I got remarried 2.5 years ago. And because of him, I can financially be able to do just ministry things and not have to be working full time and all of that stuff. So that's a little bit about me and what brought me to where I am today. But I absolutely love podcasting and connecting with people like you, like all over the world. I think it's an amazing time to be alive with technology. I have a sticker on my computer that says, go into all the world and preach the good news. And that's what, Sue, that's what we do with podcasting. We're all over the world.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so that's
wonderful.
exciting to me that we get to, be missionaries all over the world, even just right behind our microphones. And so I
Yeah.
love it.
So how do you manage all that? Do you have other ladies that are like a volunteer leadership team or anything like that?
Just the people who have volunteered to do it in their own cities. We meet together sometimes. I have a Facebook page for them. And then actually, this is another huge part of it. We're doing a retreat in January in Dallas. We have 65 registered now. And so that, yes, a ton of volunteers for that. All the speakers are volunteering. They're all widowed, people coming together to lead small groups and to talk about topics and all of those things. So yeah, that's definitely done with volunteers for sure.
Okay, so more, you think through Facebook you're able to kind of navigate that, like advertise, but get volunteers for that and
Yes,
everything else?
actually, I mean, they have been signing up from everywhere. So from my podcast is a big percentage of the people. But then TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all these places, they see the videos that I put out and they sign up, which is absolutely amazing. We're going to cap it at 80, so we're almost to our limit. But Facebook has been such a lifeline to so many widows. So we actually have a community based on my podcast that now has over 13,000 people. And that's where people are connecting, and then I've got like seasoned widows who are in there helping the new widows. And that's a team of people too. I couldn't do that. I have 4 admins that help me, so it definitely is people who believe in what we're doing and want to help. And people are like, well, why are you still doing this? You're married again. You don't have to. I'm like, because I remember, I know what it feels like. And especially church can be very lonely because you see all the families and all the couples, and the only singles things are usually for 20-year-olds, and
Yeah,
you don't fit in, especially when, you're a younger widow than people are
yeah,
typically widowed at. And so I'm working to make churches a place where widows feel seen, they feel heard. I really would love for churches to be able to reach out on all the hard days, not just the beginning. when everyone's there. I do something where I collect widows, the death anniversary, their anniversary, like wedding anniversary, and then their birthday, and I send them emails on those days. And I've had so many people tell me how much that means to them because it can be a lonely place and people forget those dates. And so I'd love it if there's a way that we can help churches to remember widows. And when I say widows, I also mean widowers, on those hard days.
Yeah. It sounds like you're going to need help at some point.
I think so. I
Because
think you're right. I feel like I'm right on the brink of everything getting really big where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to have people helping me with
yeah,
all the
you
day-to-day
will.
stuff. Yeah.
Do you get some sponsors, like people to help you financially at all?
No, we don't have any
Okay.
of that. I mean, people give here and there, and we're about to start a fundraiser for scholarships for the retreat. We were given two
Yeah.
scholarships that I've already given away. But I believe through this, we're going to find, it's the end of the year giving. Hopefully, we'll be able to get people to be sponsored. But I haven't really gone into the big part of fundraising and doing all that. I feel so overwhelmed with all the other parts of it.
Yeah, of course.
But it might
Yeah,
be
I
at some point where I have to
understand.
hire somebody and when we can
Yeah.
do that. But it's been an interesting journey the last 4 years, like completely going a different
Yeah.
direction and being an elementary teacher.
Well, that's so cool, though. Our ministry's called Crown of Beauty from Isaiah
Mm,
61:3, and
love that.
bringing, yeah, you know that, right? Beauty,
Yes.
beauty out of
It's
the
my
ashes,
favorite.
or beauty instead of ashes, or beauty from the ashes, whichever
Yes. The version.
translation.
Yeah.
And, just that whole idea, it's not, it's interesting because it's not beauty coming out of the ashes, it's actually transforming the ashes to
Yes.
become beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's why it's beauty for. It's the idea of instead, a replacement of. But it's really like if we didn't have the ashes, we wouldn't have the beauty that we have.
That's right.
So if
Such a
you
good
didn't
point.
go through that, and of course your husband's in glory and in
Yes.
loving life, eternal
Yes.
life, and here we are miserable, but
Yes.
I'm sure he's absolutely thrilled that you're, um, bringing healing and help to so many people through that. And
Yes.
so on the movies, they always have these stories where I just watched another one. I think it's Christian, actually. It was really cool on Netflix, but they always have the person struggle with even dating again,
Oh yeah. Oh, there's so
or
many movies that have that too.
I know. Do you feel like, because you did remarry within what,
hmm
5 years
It was
or
two. It was about almost 3 years from the
three
time that
years?
Luke died. Yeah.
And plus, you had kids, so they had lost their dad. So
Yes.
talk about that. How does that, and
Yeah,
living
that's
with other widows too. So tell us
yes.
about
Are you
that.
talking about the Christmas ring? Did you watch that
No,
movie? Oh,
not
okay. No,
yet.
that was in the
I'm waiting
theater.
on the Christmas ones till after Thanksgiving.
Oh, okay. Because that's Karen Kingsbury, who is an amazing author from this
Mm-hmm.
area. That movie's in the theaters, and I just saw it. And it's widows who deal with this, but it's in so many movies. But
Yeah.
it's truth. You do wrestle. Like I was married almost 17 years. The first time that I was on a date with a man, I had a few dates before Joel. Um, I felt so like I feel like I'm cheating. This is very weird because your brain is so used to being with one person and you don't talk to men and like in that way. And so it was very strange. But I finally got to this place where like, nope, Luke would want me to be happy. God wants me to, keep living life. I'm gonna have to release that. So each widow and widower, they do go through that in their own way. Some people it takes longer, and some people don't want to date again, and that's okay. A lot of people are scared to marry again because they could become widowed again. It's actually a
Mm.
thought I had the weekend Joel and I got engaged. I was going back on the plane. He lived in Louisiana. I was in Washington. And I was like, I could be widowed again. Do I want to do this? But I was like, you know what? It's better to have loved and lost than to never love at all. And now it's better to have loved and lost a second time than to not love again. And so I decided to just go in faith and go forward with it. And it's been an amazing thing. But yeah, the struggle is real when you're thinking about dating. In fact, I'm taking a group through my workbook right now. And last night we did the chapter about finding love again. And we went through all those questions and what are you feeling about it? And some are already dating, some are like, no, I'm not ready. And I'm like, you're completely okay wherever you're at. But it is a real struggle when you're thinking about dating. Like it feels weird. It feels very weird.
Yeah, and you did it relatively quick. I would guess people that wait, they get a lot of pressure
Yeah,
to
it's
yeah.
both ways. So it's either, oh, you're not dating yet, or oh, you're dating so soon. And it's like,
Yeah.
just don't give people your opinions. Like whatever is right for them is right for them. Like some
Mhm.
people, I mean, I have a good friend. She got no, two good friends who were married again by a year after their spouses. They were ready for it. Everybody's different.
Yeah.
And so we can't judge because we have no idea. Like when people are like, oh, that person got married fast. I'm like, well, that was right for them. Like that is not our place to judge that. But it seems like, oh, and people want to give you all kinds of advice and
Yeah.
and that also leads me to something that I'm really passionate about sharing is some things not to say and to say to someone grieving. People mean to say, I always say, listen to their hearts, not their words, because they usually mean well. And some things that people say are, I'm going to give you two. At least anything that starts with at least you're young, you can marry again. At
Mm.
least you had this many years, at least. And it diminishes what the griever is feeling like, oh, at least. And then the other thing is, I know how you feel. Anything that starts with,
Oh.
I know how you feel. And this is the one we really don't like. I know how you feel. I'm divorced. Not the same. Like, don't, and people do that a lot.
Oh.
And so even I used to say I know how you feel to other widows until I read this book, Grief Recovery and the Grief Recovery Handbook. And anyways, it was talking about like we don't actually know how another widow feels, even because our stories are different. So I tell them like I understand the feeling of being widowed, but I don't know how you feel. So instead of saying, all these things I don't know how you feel, I mean, all of it, just say, I don't know what to say, but I'm here to listen. And then just be quiet.
Mhm.
That's all I want. We just want
Okay.
someone to sit with us, and then another one more is don't say, let me know if you ever need anything, because
Mm.
a griever doesn't know what they need. And this
Oh.
is for anyone grieving, not just widows and widowers. Instead, say, I'm going to bring you a meal. I'm going to pick up your kids. Like, very, like, I had friends say, I'm going to come over and help you clean your house. I'm like, okay. And I really appreciated the friends who would just step up and do it and not ask me. Because when we're grieving, we don't know what we want. It's kind of just a thing that people say. And so I don't say that anymore. I'm sure I'm guilty of saying it before I was widowed. But anyways, that's a little bit of some education for people.
Yeah, we made a mistake with my mom because she is really strong woman and you wouldn't really see her cry, that kind
Yeah.
of thing too often. So when dad died, it was like I was like bawling and my brother was pretty teary and then mom is like not even crying and we were shocked because they had a very very close relationship and I said to her something like what's the matter with you, you can cry mom, you don't have to be strong all the time. Oh my goodness, we she was so angry, because
Hmm.
it's like she wanted the freedom to feel however she needed
However,
to
yeah.
feel,
Yeah.
and she wasn't ready. She knew once I start crying, I won't stop.
Right.
And I mean, I do counseling, and that's common in different grief type things where you
Yeah.
honestly feel like I will never stop.
Right.
You're scared to even start,
Hmm.
you know. And sure enough, then she did cry and she never stopped.
Right.
It was like for I don't I don't know how long. It's a really long time, but every
Right.
night, for a
Right.
couple of years or something. But um, yeah. So that's another one, I guess, is not
Hmm. And
telling people if they should cry
how
or
to
let it
feel.
out or yeah, how to
But I
feel.
mean, I think your intentions were really good, and it's actually true. If we don't cry, if we don't feel, we're not going to heal. So I always tell people grief is like going on a bear hunt, that little nursery rhyme. You can't go over it, can't go under it, can't go around it. You got to go through it. So the only way to heal is to feel it. So I mean, you were actually telling her correct things, even if she wasn't receiving it well. That feeling it is what's going to help you heal. Like so much
Yeah.
that when people are crying, I teach people not to comfort them. I mean, you can comfort them when they're done. Like I've done this with my daughter a few years ago. She's crying and crying. I said, I'm not hugging you right now because you need to feel this. If you don't feel it, you're not going to get through it. And so letting people actually really feel it instead of, in society, we want them to stop crying,
You
so
want
we
them
try
to
to,
feel okay.
yes.
I know one of my guests was, it was a couple years ago, and she gets mad because she said, "You want me to stop crying for you, not for me. Like
Hmm.
it makes you uncomfortable.
That
You
is
don't
true,
want that."
actually. Yeah,
And so she gets really feisty about it. I
I understand
it
that.
really
Yeah,
hit me. I was like, oh, okay.
it's true. It's really
Yeah.
true.
So another topic I'm guessing you talk about is with your kids. Like,
Hmm.
how do you navigate that? What are some
Yes.
advice that you give
Yes,
to
that's a whole chapter in my book as well, about solo parenting, which is different than single parenting, where it is not the same thing. Single parents usually have another parent they're going to. Solo parents, we have nobody. Now, yes, it's a little different for me now that I'm remarried, but he's never tried to be their dad. And so we still don't have that person. But as far as
right?
logistics and helping, I do have somebody now. But it's the same thing, like letting your kids feel it and then also knowing they're all going to heal at different times in different ways. Like all of my kids have completely reacted differently to the death of their dad. One that got really angry and has kind of walked away from his faith because he's like, why, if God's so powerful, why didn't he heal my dad? And then I've got the other two that have really leaned into their faith and are, doing great things. And so it's interesting, but I think it's about just letting each child deal with it in their way, but normalizing talking about the parent that died. So I started right away. What do you think daddy would think about this? Oh, daddy would think this is funny. Like talking about him all the time and giving him that place because I've heard with working with widows that some like their kids will not talk about him, they won't do it. But so normalizing it from the very beginning, I think is huge. Still including their dad in memories and traditions. In fact, I did a podcast yesterday about surviving the holidays and how mixing the old traditions with the new is really the best way to go because if you try to do everything the exact same, it's too painful. I found that out the hard way the first year. So mixing old traditions with new traditions, but still honoring him. We still talk about him. We have a tradition on the anniversary of his death. We have this place in Washington called Red Robin. I think it's around in other places too. It was Luke's favorite restaurant. And we go, and each year the kids say like what they would tell him if he was sitting there, like the things they
Oh,
accomplished in the last year that they're proud of. And that's our tradition. And Joel doesn't go with us. He knows that's our special thing. We go to the grave. We still honor and talk about Luke and, getting them into counseling. Two of mine were willing to go. One still has never gone. The other two have. But as much as you can, get them to go to someplace where they can talk about it. There's a lot of great programs for kids. And so just really being there and just knowing they're going to deal with it differently. That was something I had to figure out is okay, they're all dealing with it totally different and it's all okay. Like we're working through it with each one of them.
yeah. And I think for the kids, I can't speak for, you can tell me from the wife's point of view, but I think for kids, there'll be seasons. So when
Yes.
they get married and their dad can't
Hmm.
walk them down the aisle,
Oh yeah.
when they graduate and they don't have their dad there to cheer and,
We've been through that. Yes.
or a sporting event that they, maybe their, whatever, their dad was more the one they
Yes.
connected in that area, and they don't have that, or I don't have a dad to throw a football with me, or
Oh yeah.
that kind of thing. I think that's really hard.
Yes, we've been through two graduations. The third is about to be this year. And those have been very, very, very hard days. And then I've also noticed as my older two, they're 19 and 21, have become adults. They're going through another grief. Like now that I'm an adult, I wish that he was here to help me with all these decisions. And
Mm,
like my oldest was like, no offense to you, but I wish he was here to talk to him. Like, no, I get it. And
yeah,
as they are entering these new phases, I mean, taking my oldest to college, I was so, and that was before I was married again, too. I just felt so alone and so like, I can't believe he's not here for this,
yeah,
and just like everybody's got their mom and dad, and it was just me and Hayden. And I felt that, taking Haley to college, just all the moments. I would say now for me, my grief is mostly for my kids. That's when I grieve the most because they're so sad about different things.
They
And
can't get a
that's
new dad. You got a new husband.
exactly. And actually my daughter expressed that my wedding day was, though she was happy for me and she was part of it and she, was my maid of honor and all these things, that it was really difficult for her because she said, it's final now. You have moved on and you have a new husband. We will never have a new dad. And it just feels like you're moving forward and we're not, and I was
Yeah.
like, I'm sorry.
I
you
don't
know.
know. I mean, not that I'm saying you should tell her this, but what happened with us is my daughter, her boyfriend, he hasn't had a dad a long
Mm,
time. And suddenly now they're in a very serious relationship. They're planning
hmm
to get married. And he's really bonding with my husband.
mm,
And so it was really sweet because uh, Todd went up to help them get into a new apartment, and Joanna had to go to work, my daughter. And so Todd turns to Jack and says, "Hey, you want help? Like, I love doing screwing in the parts of a new dresser. Like, I
hmm
love doing that. Can I stay and help?" And he goes, "Okay." And it's total bonding time. It
I
was
love that.
so
It's
sweet.
beautiful.
And they ended up, I said, "What did you just talk about, like building?" And he goes, "No, we like he opened up about his dad and stuff like that."
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and then he told Joanna, "Wow, your dad's like the dad I never had."
Oh, that's so
So,
sweet.
right? So, I don't know, you
Mhm.
can add that to your book, but to give,
Mhm.
I mean, it's really like to give, like your daughter, not that you necessarily can say that, but
Yeah.
but it is true. Once too, she gets married. I mean, you know that, like we all know that because when we got married, our dad's still important, absolutely,
Yeah.
but it's not at the same level if we
Mhm.
get married, right? We have a
Yeah.
husband.
She's already asked, I mean, she's not even dating someone, but she's asked her brothers that if they will walk her down the aisle someday.
Oh,
So that's what
that's
she's
good.
gonna do, which I think is beautiful.
That's nice. So, how's it been for your new husband and his relationship with your kids? Has that been
Yeah,
challenging or
no, actually, it's
okay?
really good, especially with my youngest, because he was the youngest when we got married, and he's the one still here. So I spent the most time with him.
Mm.
And they do Bible studies together, and he, helped teach him to drive and,
Oh,
works on the car with him. And so I think he's been the most accepting of
mm-hmm.
everything. And then, Haley, it's good, but she's a teenage girl. They don't have a lot in common. And then my oldest has spent the least amount of time because he was in college, came home briefly. Now he has his own apartment.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have a problem with him, but they're not like super close. But we've always told them from the beginning, Joel's like, I'm your friend. I'm never going to be try to be your dad. And I'm another support person in your life. And so it's been really good. We haven't had any issues between any of them and him, which I've heard stories where it doesn't go so well. So I'm thankful.
Yeah, there's no guarantees on that for
Hmm
sure. Yeah, I ended up calling my stepfather dad kind of from
Mm,
the beginning.
that's beautiful.
But my one brother did and my older brother no. He was the one that
Yeah.
didn't really bond with him. Yeah, you
Yeah.
just never know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is really cool that you're having this ministry. I think it's so
Thank
important.
you.
Um, so what helped you, like this whole topic of trusting God
Mm,
when life falls apart? What was
yes.
your journey with God when that happened? Did you kind of
Yes.
like crash at first, or were you
Yeah,
doing?
all kinds of emotions. So the very first time he was diagnosed when we just got married, I was 24. I had anger for sure because all my friends were young and having kids. And I mean, I was pregnant too, but my husband was sick. So I had some anger during that time period. I don't feel like I had it very much when the cancer came back. There were some time periods where I would just scream in my car and be like, God, I can't do this. I cannot do this. But
Mhm,
during that time period, I heard a sermon, and the pastor talked about every single thing that happens in our lives. God has his hand on it. He either allows it or he causes it. And we know that he doesn't cause death and sickness, but he allows it. And
mhm,
so I started saying, if God allowed it, I can accept it. And that's something I've taught my kids, and we can all relate to that. Like, if God allowed it, I can accept it. And so that's kind of how I started accepting his second cancer diagnosis, was through those sermons. And then it was just something that, afterwards I continued and still continue to say, like, if God allowed it, I can accept it. Like, he has a plan that I do not understand. My human brain cannot comprehend his whole big picture here. Now I can see how there's so much beauty coming out of this, out of the ashes, because of the way God's given me this ministry and helping people all over the world. I never would have chosen this, but I can see the beauty, and so it's been a lot of learning to trust. There are so many conversations with God where I'm just laying face down on the floor crying in the very, very beginning, and when Luke was really sick, because at that point I was just fearing, what is his death going to be like? I can't do this, taking my kids through it, and then actually going through it, and just crying out to God, lots and lots of worship music on the floor, crying and asking him to meet me. And he always did. He always does, and covers me with the peace that passes all understanding, like a peace you cannot explain to people. And so that was a big part of my healing journey, is a lot of that. God really has a special place, for widows. He is a defender of widows and a father to the fatherless. I remember the first time I read that verse as a widow. I was like, that's me and my kids. That's
Wow.
God, and so it
Yeah.
was completely trusting him with my future. I had no idea. So at the time I wasn't working. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I ended up moving, and like just a lot of things in my life were changing. And I just was like, okay, God, like my life, this second chapter is kind of like a blank book right now. I don't know where I'm going, what I'm doing, but I'm just going to step into the next thing and the next thing. And that's kind of how my ministry was built. But yeah, there was a lot of trusting him, when everything is falling apart. So here's a very specific memory I have. I don't know if you've ever seen this picture, and hopefully the listeners had. There's a painting that someone made of Jesus reaching down into the water, but the view is you're underwater and
Yeah.
you're seeing his hand come down. And I remember very specifically one of the times that Luke was in the hospital. I went into the chapel of the hospital and I just prayed with my hand up, just imagining that picture. And I was like, I can't see what's coming, but I trust you. And so there was so much of that, God doesn't promise that we won't have troubles. He actually says, in this world, you will have troubles, but he promises to be with us, to walk through the fire, to go through the water. I can't remember exactly the verse, but it was the theme of our widows retreat last year, about like, when I go through the deep waters, you will be with me, and basically I'm not going to drown. Like, I'm going to
Yeah.
go through it. It's going to feel like I'm drowning sometimes, but I know because I trust you, I won't drown. And so there's been so many circumstances like that where it's like, okay, God, here's my life. I have no idea. And it's been amazing to look back over it's been 5.5 years since Luke died, and just how God has transformed my life in massive ways. And I'm not in a career I was, I'm not in the same house. I have a different husband. I mean, my life is so different. And at that point, it felt so dark, like when he died, even though I'd been prepared. I didn't know how. So, to answer your question, yes, there's been a lot of trusting God, but I'd say my biggest advice I would give to people is starting to say, if God allowed it, I can accept it. And just like realizing he allows things or he causes them, and to be okay with wherever we are in life, even though it looks very not great. Like we can't see what the point, and a lot of it we won't even know until we get to heaven. Like, what was the point of
Right.
that?
Right.
And
Yeah.
then another thing that God brings to my mind all the time when I'm like, there's so many awful things happening, and I know really good widows who've already lost their husband, and then they have cancer, and I'm like, God, what is happening? And I keep hearing, this world is not our home. Like, we've got to have an eternal purpose, because it's not going to make sense here. I'm like, all these friends who've already lost their husband, they shouldn't have to go through this kind of stuff and alone, but this world is not our home. And that's a great reminder to, when life doesn't make sense, that, this is not where we're going to be in eternity. And this is just a small piece of our eternal lives.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you mentioned how at first people come and, oh, I'm so sorry, and they're there, but then what, 2, 3 months pass, and then that's the
Yep.
end of dinners and whatnot,
Yes.
right?
Yes. That,
So, do you feel like, is your advice that even if people aren't extroverted, or even if they're really depressed, that they reach out, and if so, who,
yes.
where, whom would you suggest?
Yeah, I mean, the best is if you have their phone number or whatever. Even just a little text from somebody a few months down means the world. And I would say, I always give the advice to put in your like your Google Calendar or whatever you use, the important dates of that person, like the anniversary of the death, their wedding anniversary, their birthday, possibly their spouse's birthday, and reach out. Just a simple text means the world. Hey, I know today is, whatever the day is, and I want you to know I'm praying for you. Or I like to send voice messages. I think they're really personal. And I was talking to somebody about this the other day, instead of just saying, I'm going to pray for you, which sometimes we can forget if we're honest, I just pull out the voice recorder and I pray for them right there. Hey, I'm
Yeah,
going to pray
that's
for you.
nice.
And
Yeah.
then I don't forget
Pray
because
for
I
them.
actually am doing it and it means a lot to
And they
them. And
hear it.
so
Yeah.
I would say writing down those dates and then being there 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, like checking in with them. Like, hey, I know it's been 6 months. How are things going? And if
Yeah.
you're a good friend, like come to their house, talk to them and just sit and listen. Like let
Mm-hmm.
them talk. Sometimes that's all we want. We don't want someone to come and give us advice. It was
Mm-hmm.
kind of like when Luke was going through cancer, everyone wants to give you cancer advice. There's so much out
Mm-hmm.
there.
Yeah,
And then
you're
it's
right.
like when someone dies, everybody wants to give you advice. But I prefer somebody says the wrong thing than nothing. I had an experience where I ran into just an acquaintance a few, maybe not even a month after Luke died. And it was so awkward. I was waiting for her to say something and she said nothing. And I said,
Oh.
I don't know if you know, but Luke died. And she goes, Oh, I know. I'm so sorry. I'm like, why did you say it? Like it feels
Mm.
worse when people don't say anything when
Okay.
it's new,
Yeah.
that was really hard. But yes, definitely write down those dates and reach out to them. I'm trying to get something into churches, like I was saying, where the churches are actually aware of those dates. And
Okay.
we've got a big dream of creating software that does that because I'm already doing it. I'm already collecting it. And if some way I can, get it into their churches, like if they give me a contact at their church and then letting the churches know about a week early, hey, this is coming up. You might want to have somebody reach out to them on that day. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of my big dream is like this way we can help them feel seen and heard because one of the hardest things is feeling so alone. Like nobody gets this. I remember thinking, my friends and family don't get this. They're great, but they don't understand this. And then I was able to find my people who got it. But it would have been so nice to have people from church reaching out. Yes, my church was there in the beginning, brought me flowers, all the things, but they didn't have a ministry for widows. They said, Oh, you can start one. I'm like, I'm a baby widow. I mean, I didn't know that term yet, but I was like, I'm brand new. I'm not ready to start anything, but the point is with my system, with the leader's guide, even someone who's not widowed, they could lead the group because it literally tells you what to say. And so I want there to just be more support in churches for sure.
So for the widow, like you told me what we should do to help the widow, but what do you suggest for the widow when she's just feeling completely devastated and
Yes.
she doesn't know you?
Um, to reach out to somebody like community is the most important thing. And also, like, you can make community on Facebook. That's where I first made it. And
Okay.
so look for, they're everywhere. Like mine is Widow Too Soon community. That's something that people can join. Um, Reaching out to people in your circle. Hopefully the widows, even if they don't know any widows, they've got a circle of people surrounding them, reaching out to them and say, Hey, could you just come sit with me? And trying to be proactive in your healing, face down, crying to God, asking Him to meet you there, really pouring out to God, praying for people to come into your life to help you. But we also have to be very proactive in our healing. So, this is another thing I like to share to get people to understand it. Let's say I went up to my car right now and I had a flat tire and I was like, I'll come back in a year. It'll be filled. Well, I came back in a year. It's still flat. It's the same thing with our healing. We
Mm-hmm.
have to be proactive seeking, for me it was grief counseling, regular counseling, grief retreat, every grief book I could find, specifically Christian ones, and really like reaching out for help. And so someone who is devastated has to also be proactive. Now, yes, those first couple weeks we can't really do much on our own. But once we start getting like our bearings, then reaching out, like I said, reaching out to those communities. You can start with Widow Too Soon community on Facebook or any of those, and then being proactive in your healing so that you
Mm-hmm.
can move forward and be surrounded by a community of people who get it and love you.
That's awesome. Yeah, so we're out of time, but I'd love for you again to share the name of your book and then how they could contact you, or if you all have a
Yeah.
friend out there who, those listening who have become a widow or widower recently, that they can then contact you.
Yes, I would love that. So, my book is called Widow Goals Steps to Finding Peace When You Lose Your Spouse. And that can be found on Amazon. And there's also the workbook and the leader's guide all on Amazon. If you're looking to get the program into your church, it would be widowgoals.org/support program. And that will tell you everything about the program. And churches can actually order in bulk and get a discount. So they can do that. If they want to email me, I'd be happy to talk to anybody. It's michelle@widowgoals.org. You can also connect with me at Facebook, Michelle Bader Ebersole, or search for Widow Goals on TikTok, Instagram, all the places. Between all that, you'll find me, and I would be so happy to talk to you.
Yeah, that's awesome. And probably Grief Share, they might have that. Or
Yes.
check out, if you go to a smaller church, if you have large churches around you, you might look. They might have something that you could
Yes.
be a part of,
Yes. There
if
are some.
they're
So
not near
definitely,
you. Yeah,
definitely look for that.
oh, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Michelle.
Oh,
This was
thank
really
you.
awesome. And let me pray for you and your
Oh, thank
ministry. And
you.
those listening, join with me in praying for Michelle. Lori, I'm just in awe as I hear uh, Michelle's story and how you're using her so powerfully with so many people around the world through her podcast, through her book, her program, through social media, through these Facebook groups. So it's just so beautiful. It really is beauty for ashes. And so
Hmm.
thank you that she is displaying your splendor through giving her life to serve others, even out of her own pain. And I'm sure there's times, definitely, especially like she said, with her kids and watching them go through these hard seasons as well. So I also pray for those listening that have had loss, and whether they're a widow or they've lost a child or a sibling or a parent or whatever. It's not easy, and so I just pray, Lord, that that you'll comfort them, that they will, as Michelle put it, I could see you, Michelle, but just go flat down on their face and cry out to you. And I believe, Lord, that you will meet with them. So thank you for this time in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All righty. Thank you again,
All right.
Michelle. And
Thank you
may
for
God
having me.
continue to help many, 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 many women and men as well.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. All right. Y'all have a great week and share this with those that really would benefit.